Who in the fuck does Tom Cotton think he is?
Send it. You can hear Hannity's voice shake these days. He claims he's horrified by, how does he say it? Radical leftist socialists are taking over the Democrat Party. I want to address his fears and the fears of others like Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene and what they really mean. But first we have to address a tool they use that has become almost but not quite irrelevant. I call it boomer speak. Radical leftist to describe a Democrat is pretty hyperbolic, folks. Come on. It's an attempt to dehumanize the individual candidate by associating them with a preordained enemy. All of it in order to avoid the professional obligation of statesmanship, which is to debate and compromise in order to create sound policy. If you pay attention, you can pick out the incompetent candidates just by identifying boomer speak in their campaign narrative. Tom Cotton sells communist China in front of everything, but all in all, he spends most of his time making boomers afraid of boogeymen that only exist in his fantasy military-industrial complex sales pitch. Boomer speak is a language used by people who prey on ignorance and fear. Boomer speak is misinformation wrapped in the comfort of post-Korean conflict propaganda, with a dash of hope that maybe the civil rights movement could be revisited, even if the outright renegotiation of Reconstruction is failing. Boomer speak is a language used to motivate those bitches who were shouting at Ruby Bridges. They still vote, make no mistake. The only reason Trump is president is because those people vote. Here's the larger problem. It's lying. It's manipulation. It's subterfuge and sedition instead of politics. Hear me out, folks, and tell the others if your representative would blatantly lie to you so that you would vote against your own interests. That isn't politics. That is betrayal. And that is the foundation of American politics right now. We, the people, have been betrayed by a long list of Democrats, Republicans, news anchors, and pundits. So what is the tricep betrayal? And that brings me back around to Tucker Carlson, Rogan, Hannity, and others. They're afraid of an accounting. They fear the day when the full weight and effects of their own actions are brought to bear. If leftists were to build a gallows roster, Tucker would be first to the news, followed by Rogan, Hannity, and a slew of others. These people don't fear radical leftist socialists because there aren't any in American politics. Those nooses would not be theoretical if they were. They fear what happens when what they helped to build is openly acknowledged as the betrayal that it was. And they should. They should probably all slip under a rock somewhere before they get our undivided attention. I seem to recall that even the Christian God does not forgive betrayal, nor should we. There are those who have earned prosecution, and as much as I dislike Tucker, Hannity, and Rogan, they broke no laws. All they deserve, in my opinion, is obscurity. I can only execute that particular sentence as an individual. Maybe a whole bunch of us as individuals all at the same time could pull that off, but time will tell. There are those who sit in seats of power who have broken laws and who are owed prosecution. I think it might be time for all of us to accept that they are not all Democrats or Republicans, and that proximity to Epstein is not always an implication of involvement in human trafficking, but I will insist that the trafficking in children was not the only illicit activity that those in proximity to Epstein must be investigated for. If you want the full tour down the Epstein rabbit hole, I can give you some guidance on Substack. Moving on for now. Let's talk about the president's speech tonight. Pre-fact check, if you will. I'm going to state verifiable facts. I will provide links in the description. I can tell you that if he tells you there's new evidence of election fraud, he will not provide proof or evidence of that fraud. I can tell you that he will use the following boomer speak trigger words as often as possible. Communist threat, radical Marxist, violent leftist. I think one of his favorites is violent radical leftist or violent radical Marxist, He's going to try to tell you that people like me are unpatriotic, violent criminals who wish to overthrow the government. I would ask you to carefully examine instances of state-sponsored violence in the past 18 months, by the way. He's going to make a lot of claims against character and intelligence towards certain politicians and organizations tonight. He's going to make a lot of scary claims. So here's the facts. There are only 79 instances of non-citizens attempting to vote in the past 25 years. And of those 79, 69 of them were legal residents, just not citizens, and only 10 of them were undocumented immigrants. Those numbers are from the Heritage Foundation's independent study. I can't find a more right-wing source than that, if I'm being honest. Georgia elections. Rumor has it that the president will claim that a senator from Georgia does not hold a legitimate office because of election fraud. He will not provide evidence or proof of such things, and he will just put it out there to muddy the waters. Here's the facts. The Republicans sued 5 times to turn over the Georgia election results in 2020. All 5 times they lost in court. They could not provide evidence, and the state of Georgia provided evidence to the contrary of their claims. This is important to understand because he's going to try to make Georgia and Minnesota the focal point of his election security claims tonight. Oh, he'll talk about California too, but he'll focus on the southern state of Georgia, and he will use the northern state of Minnesota to scare the hell out of the southern states. What's the point? Well, he wants to be able to excuse what he does after the November elections when he loses the House and the Senate. He wants to be able to wad all of those people up in court for as long as possible to keep from being impeached. He's going to muddy the waters and create chaos and resort to violence if necessary, because his entire administration is avoiding accountability for their poor performance, lack of competence, and disregard for the law. He'll probably brag about some things he's done well tonight. Unfortunately for most of us, none of those things have benefited working class Americans. Yeah, increase in the stock market, I mean, that's helping a bunch of 401ks, I guess. But has he done anything to make your personal life more affordable? Has Republican policy across the country and across any red state you might live in brought you peace, security, or affordability? Do you have access to quality health care? Do your children get a rigorous education? Do you feel like if the economy collapsed tomorrow that there are systems in place to keep you from starving to death? Maybe that sounds hyperbolic to you, but there are people in that situation in this country every day. One more thing, and then you can go watch this dude's speech tonight without me bending your ear any longer. Far too many members of Congress, the press, the judiciary, and honestly just regular dudes walking around in life are pretending that all of this is just politics. I would ask that you have the courage not to be a pretender. I would ask that you look with open and serious eyes at the way things are. I would ask that you look at the people the president will tell you are violent Marxists tonight and make your own evaluation of those people. The truth is that we, the people, can steal our country back by hijacking the Democrat Party. The scariest thing in the world to the Republicans and Democrats is us having power. So if you call yourself a patriot, if you call yourself a real man, if you're just trying to be a good citizen, then I need you to face what is coming between now and the midterms with clear and open eyes. We've never seen the onslaught of lies that we are about to experience from this administration. They will come as close as they are able to prosecuting people for simply running against them. This is not a game, and this is not hyperbole. We are now faced with a very serious business of taking our country back from people whose interests do not match our own. If you don't believe that, I honestly don't believe you've been bright enough to follow this podcast so far. It's time to stop pretending that there's some moral dilemma in front of you. If you want this madness to end, you had better vote against the incompetence and dishonesty, whether it be a representative, a senator, a governor, or any other position you might be voting for. The people who are right now running this country and the people who have been running this country for 50 years do not deserve another fucking day of power. Now is the time for accountability. Y'all have a good one.